Hello, and welcome to another fully live and slightly randomly timed episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today, Killian was just here. I don't know where he went. I'm sure he will be back. However, we should have Killian on the stream with us today, talking about the hacker news and also talking a little bit more about cloud security. As I mentioned on the last couple streams, our provider Restream has recently switched up the way they do things, making it very difficult for us to schedule these streams. So I know when they're going to start, but getting you to understand when they're going to start too used to be as easy as scheduling a stream. You get a notification, we connect this to it, and then we're good to go. But it looks like we need to do everything a little bit differently. I think we've got it figured out now, so next week should be a little bit more smooth. But still, always makes me happy when we have already so many people in the chat when we just kind of spontaneously popped up. So hello to everybody in the chat. Average Joe, SAQ, and of course, a cat. Good to see all of you. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. One of them being cloud security. So I think I see Killian with no camera. I'm just gonna try adding you. Hello, Heisenberg. How's it
Hello.
going?
You know what? I got a brand new laptop this week, like literally fresh out of the box. The camera will not work to save my life. Not the built-in one, not my normal one.
Wow, well, this is finally the time, I guess, to like whatever it makes you small, me big. This is finally the time to do it because now you're just a floating ball that like vibrates a little bit when you say something. But welcome in spirit, Killian. It's good to have your disembodied form here with us today. Um, we're going to go over a lot of different things, but I wanted to start out with the new installment, I guess, of our cloud security concepts. So, let me pose a theoretical. Killian, if I'm a hacker and I am going into someone's like Amazon bucket, like S2 bucket, and I want to dig around and start doing interesting things like maybe deleting something or accessing information that's been accidentally exposed to me, what do I gotta look out for? Like, do I need to look over my shoulder? Do I need to worry about like potentially somebody uh, having the ability to detect what I'm doing? In this case, it seems as though it really depends is the answer. Like whether or not someone's running like the free default settings or whether or not they've enabled some more advanced like logging.
Hmm.
If you are a hacker and you want to kind of understand like what kind of details are recorded in the Amazon, or if you're a defender and you want to know what your chances are of figuring out what happened, it's actually kind of important to understand this stuff. So if I share my screen over here, you can see that when we look at all the different services available in Amazon, it's so easy to get lost and confused. Like this
Hmm.
is, I feel like when I opened up Kali Linux for the first time and I saw all these different tools in all these different categories, and I was just like, I don't know what any of these do. And when you open one of these, you realize that you could live in that application like as your job and just never interact with many of these other uh, specific like services that are available here. So I found this to be crazy and definitely a little bit overwhelming at first. But when it comes to logging and when it comes to like catching attackers doing stuff in Amazon resources, there's really two different services that allow you to catch hackers or at least like determine that maybe something suspicious is going on. So we've got CloudWatch, which okay, it's in the cloud, you're watching the cloud, I get it, you know, you've got your little, you know, magnifying glass, you're taking a peek, and then you've got this alarm bell that rings when the cloud's freaking out. Like, okay, it's kind of like pretty literal, but like I'm getting from the iconography here what CloudWatch is for. And then we have Cloud Trail. And this cloud is like, I kind of like that sometimes it makes an unintentional face out of the cloud. Like this cloud's a little shifty, but it's like flying to the right. And this, you know, those are its eyes, that's its mouth. I guess I'm, you know, just kind of seeing shapes in the cloud at this point. But um, the idea with CloudTrail is that it is maybe peeking a little bit more into the audit log of stuff, and whether or not that audit log is actually useful, again, kind of depends. So, Killian, do you know what the difference is between CloudTrail and CloudWatch aside from their iconography?
I've only really had a little bit of experience with Cloud Trail, like just like the pure logging stuff. I haven't ever gotten really down into the Cloud Watch aspect of it. So this is going to be a good learning experience for me. So I'm curious to see what you've dug up.
Oh, well, we're all beginners here. Yeah, I just learned about this stuff last week, so I'm still learning too. But so CloudTrail is kind of the more go-to tool here in order to do security auditing and try to understand like, what is going on, like what has happened in my instance, like, and there's two different ways that CloudTrail kind of works. Like, so primarily it's like a governance and like auditing tool, and it's going to be logging the API calls that are made to your resources in AWS. So it's going to be like anybody who's logged in on the console, anybody who's accessing it over like the command line interface,
Hmm.
like all that stuff, including your like automated instances, like a virtual machine that's going to be using the stuff and accessing it. All that's going to be logged in some way, shape, or form. And CloudTrail allows you to audit those logs and go in and like look at them, or even set alerts to look for suspicious logs. So if you're a hacker and you're wondering where you're going to get caught, it's going to be one of these two. But CloudTrail specifically is going to be the one that's sniffing down all of those different API calls that are made. And what's interesting about them is there's two different levels of logging. And this is where it gets really interesting. And I think hackers should take notice. Um, if you have set it up by default, there's free logging included. And that's API call history and events for management of AWS services. So that means like you created a bucket, you deleted a bucket,
Hmm.
you modified a bucket, like something like that. On the other end is data events. So that's like a paid service. It is not enabled by default. And this is charged based on the number of events that are processed. Um, and the pricing here is inscrutable to me. Like, all right, I want to pay for CloudTrail. Like, let's see how much this is. Okay, well, I'm assuming you want Lake, or perhaps you want Trails. Well, I'm looking at CloudTrail, so yeah, I want Trails. Or is it Lake? Do I want Lake? Perhaps I want Insight. I don't know. Like, but either way, the pricing here is relatively low until you get into like large applications. Um,
Right.
Data ingestion is one thing you pay for. So like how much data you're feeding it in the first place, and this is by like gigabytes of logs. So for management and data events, it's going to be 75 cents per gigabyte. Wow, that's actually kind of more than I expected. And then 50 cents per gigabyte of like non AWS logs. So if you're like putting like AWS services into this, then that's the price. If you're putting non AWS logs into this, then it's something else. Data retention, that's how long you're holding on to it, like 0.023 cents per gigabyte per month, maximum data retention period of 10 years. And then data. So that's basically like how long is this sticking around for? Like how long could you as a hacker be caught for? Like how long is the evidence going to be
Right.
there? And data queries performed 0.005 per gigabyte of data scan. So this is for setting up like your alerting and whatever else. This pricing recently changed, so like there might be some information out there that's less accurate. Always going to the source of this is the best way to do it, but just be aware that it's not free to turn this on. So, Killian, if I'm a hacker and I go into somebody's AWS instance, like a bucket or something, and I start rifling around and I copy and steal some data, is that going to show up in a log of the free tier that comes by default with CloudTrail?
Without having investigated it off the top of my head, my gut says probably not. My guess is it's probably something basic, maybe about like authentications or connections. I'm going to guess access logging is probably not part of it, but I'd be surprised.
You are 100% correct. So there's logging on CloudTrail for two different types of events: management events that are free, and data events that are not free. So a data
Mm,
event is like accessing a resource, downloading a resource, like the kind of
yep.
stuff you actually need to like catch like a malicious insider or a misconfiguration that people are exploiting. So often this is where hackers will be like, okay, like let me go back over here. They'll be like, okay, like or sorry, like a defender will be like, all right, I know that I have an access here that's not supposed to be happening. Um, how do I figure out like what happened? They're like, oh well, thank goodness I have logs, and they open the logs, and it's just like so and so deleted a bucket, and that's the like what happened. What happened before the bucket was deleted? Did they copy stuff? Like was there other events?
Right.
Did were new users created or whatever else like happening like inside of this that maybe weren't administrative actions? It's kind of fuzzy here, and I think that like the likelihood of a hacker getting caught for accessing data on a S2 bucket that has default management logging enabled is low. like unless they're doing things like creating or deleting buckets, it's not really going to show up in the free version. So that's why this is
Hmm.
an interesting question, because like CloudTrail is specifically set up to catch stuff like this. And if you had data events, then absolutely you could catch somebody doing this, but that's not free. It's going to be, you know, like 10 cents per 10,000 events, or $2 per 1 million Lambda data events. Like the pricing again keeps changing, but it is not free to run this stuff. And thus a lot of businesses will just maybe take the free route and be like, okay, we have logging. That's good enough.
Right.
So getting people to understand the difference between management events and data events, like that to me was the big shocker here. Because if you have CloudWatch up and if you have it configured so that it's running the free version, then you know, like you're going to miss this stuff. And if you then have CloudTrail working and it's doing this, it's ingesting data, then you can still send those logs over to the other service, which is
Right.
CloudWatch, and then you can set up alerts here. Now, CloudWatch is much more for like auditing performance. So it's like monitoring performance, making sure nothing's going crazy. And this is the second way that you as a hacker might get caught. So let's say that you, instead of accessing like a bucket, you access the EC2 service and you start running like a crypto miner on someone's EC2 service, and you're just using up free resources basically at this point, for free for you anyway. So you're making cryptocurrency. This company is now paying for a virtual machine to just mine cryptocurrency. How would you get caught? Well, here is one of the ways you would get caught. If all of a sudden in this like auditing and like performance monitoring dashboard, I see that one of my clusters is just like continuously running and creating a bunch of traffic, and my pricing spikes or my usage spikes in a particular area where it shouldn't. This is where I would be able to set alerts or be able to be notified right away that something's going on. So
Right.
when hackers are like messing around in a cloud environment, like these are the two primary ways that you could be detected. And as a defender, these are the two things you should keep an eye on, because if you're logging data events, then you should have a pretty granular view of, like, for example, like somebody accessing something they shouldn't be internally, or somebody externally beginning to access and scrape resources. I feel like a lot of these data breaches that we talk about where there's an exposed bucket and somebody just scrapes the entire thing and nobody has any idea, like that's a pretty
Right.
good example of an attack that would not be noticed if you're running the default like management or administrative logging, which is free with every account, but not necessarily granular enough to detect an attack like that.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of like throw out there, like for hackers and defenders, where are the logs kept? And you know, last time we talked about different resource-based security policies that are like really important to implement, and one of the big ones was requiring 2FA to delete logs. So if you've got like
Yeah.
a bucket that's storing logs for like CloudTrail or CloudWatch or whatever, and then a hacker gets in, the first thing they're going to do is nuke those logs so that
Yep.
they don't have anything kind of watching what they're doing from that point on. So security policies, we already talked about that. We talked about IAM. We talked about like bucket-based policies or resource-based policies that would enforce things like that. So this then is the next layer of defense. Once you have those security policies in place, then what exactly happens when somebody does get in and starts messing around? Well, the logs would be the first place to check. The alerts that you can set here would be the very first line of defense. So you either know that, oh my God, my like usage is spiking on one of my EC2 instances, and I know that somebody's now crypto mining, or wow, like I'm getting a lot of data access requests like on all of these various resources that should not be exposed publicly, and they're coming from external sources. Like that shouldn't be working. Like
Right.
maybe there's something wrong with my IAM policies or something else that's causing this to happen, or maybe somebody has breached like a friendly account and is using it to scrape internally. Like that's the kind of thing that would be caught with actually doing access level management for CloudTrail. So that's all I got. Killian, did you learn something today?
I did. Yes. Thank you. This was great.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah. So hackers take note if the target, of course, this is for a pen test only, but if the target is simply running the default version of CloudTrail, most things aside from deleting buckets are probably not going to get noticed. So if you're a defender, make sure to understand the difference between those types of logging, and understand that again, data events are not free, even though they are incredibly useful for auditing these sorts of attacks. So yeah, that's my little cloud security bit this week. We've also got a lot of different stories to go over. Killian, I'm going to start with the surprise one. Did you hear
Yes.
about the Grimace coin?
Uh, no, I haven't. Does it, are people going to make TikTok videos of drinking like the Grimace shake and then like dying or whatever, but then they're going to mine crypto out of this somehow?
Well, this is kind of the I don't know. Like, I really am interested in the way that people, when they take over social media accounts, have evolved the business of scamming. So this is a cool or interesting kind of like type of attack now, where you can use cryptocurrency infrastructure to create these meme coins. So in this case, it
Hmm.
seems like you can generate these meme coins and then walk away with real cash. So if you get momentary access to a social media channel for a giant business, like what do? Like you can only make so much money off of having that account. And this tends to
Right.
maximize that momentary access. The account was hijacked. Scammers made $700,000. And what they did was they did a special event where they created a meme coin with Solana, which is a name that I found out about yesterday when I read the story.
Hmm.
They created GrimaceCoin, and then they published it to the 5.1 million followers of the McDonald's account. So they made a lot of money on this. And of course, what happened was
Right.
initially, like they positioned this to gain a lot of value really fast. And I think that oh yeah, the market capitalization surged from a few $1,000s to $25 million after 30 minutes, giving people the false impression that this like experiment was succeeding, that like McDonald's was
Yeah.
really behind it, that there was a lot of value behind this. So you have a valuable like U.S. corporation that's saying like, hey, we're creating your own like Grimace coin. They just recently did that Grimace shake thing. It's still kind of on
Yep.
people's minds. So McDonald's coming out with this sort of like meme coin kind of thing like didn't seem maybe too far off the mark to some of the victims of the scam. They saw it surging in price and they bought it. And that's how $700,000 was squeezed out of momentarily seizing access to McDonald's social media account. And this is just Instagram. But
Yeah.
for it to be published directly to 5 million people, for them to see that was enough to make it happen. Now, this is part of a series of crimes where if people gain access to one of these accounts of like a celebrity or somebody else, Elon Musk, ironically, has been like the primary target for these deep fakes and other
Right.
things that are trying to hype up cryptocurrency. Those are super popular because they make a lot of money when they succeed. So look out for these sorts of scams. I myself, just scrolling through various social media platforms, have seen these sorts of attacks that are like deep fake or AI generated or assisted. So it's not just, like announcements on social media anymore. Some of these are actually videos that look decently convincing that are raking in money from people who are trying to invest in cryptocurrency,
Yeah. That's wild.
right? No, I was pretty amazed by that. Um, so I'm not sure how big of a problem this is. However, Chrome is now going to redact information from credit cards, passwords, and
Hmm.
other stuff when you share Android screenshots. So this is screen recordings and also screen captures. So if I wanted to like share a password with someone, and it's like, yeah, let me just screenshot it real quick. I'll share it to you. The password's really long, and then it automatically edited this out. I would be upset. I would be mad. I would be like, why are you doing this? Because I have done that like a time or two if I have to like share
Sure.
something really quickly. But aside from that, it does prevent people from accidentally leaking details. But I was just going to say, like, aren't these usually start out anyway? Like, aren't these the kind of data that they're talking about? Isn't that usually obscured in the first place? Um,
I guess it depends. I mean, I suppose, yeah, on most things it usually is, but I wonder if it's in a situation where you hit that like little the little eye to reveal it button or something. Um,
hmm,
and it's like, nah, you probably really don't want to do that. This was an interesting story. It's yeah, I
yeah, this can obviously be disabled if you really don't like it.
sure.
Like I'm proposing, I might not, but I was just curious, like at what point is credit card information, passwords, whatever. I guess if you're in the field, like still typing it, you can see. But as far as I remember, like usually when you're typing in a password, like the previous letter is starred out. So even if you were
Right.
recording over someone's shoulder, I guess I guess if it recorded like each letter being entered in, they could then reconstruct it, so it wouldn't be that difficult. But I guess this is a useful feature. It's just like as somebody who makes videos and stuff, like sometimes we do have to edit this out, and other times we just have dummy passwords that we're trying to share deliberately. So I'm gonna have to make sure to turn this off myself personally when doing recordings, unless I want it to be on. But I think it's an interesting privacy forward feature. I
Mhm.
think honestly, like they're kind of struggling to come out with AI features that are relevant. And we'll see how well this one works. If it just starts censoring other random information that I'm actually trying to share, then the
Mhm.
point of recording screen captures is often to share that information in its entirety. And I just don't know how much of a problem this really is. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I mean, a lot of comments here. James said, "Oh, did you have James up?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you remember the Acropolis, I believe it was called, uh,
Yes.
they found out that the way that Android was cropping things was incomplete. So, if you had a picture and you cropped it and sent it to someone, that person could actually reconstruct that file because it didn't actually delete the information. It merely stopped the point at which it displayed it. So, somebody could just go in
Right.
and arbitrarily reconstruct that. So, that means every cropped image you sent could potentially be uncropped. That's a big deal. So, yeah, I agree like hastily rushed out features maybe yeah, I'm not sure. All right, let's talk about FlightAware. So this was a misconfiguration that was leaking user data for years.
Mhm.
That is maybe not great. A lot of people might be recording information related to their actual physical location. So FlightAware, if you're not aware of what it is a collection of ADS-B receivers that creates a live network of aircraft that can be seen by these receivers all over the world. So it's often used for tracking like celebrity airplanes and investigating like all sorts of stuff. Like it's a
Yeah.
great source of information. So lots of people, including myself, have signed up for FlightAware, and then that information was then apparently leaked due to a security incident that may have exposed personal information. So this includes your full name, billing address, shipping address, IP address, social media account, telephone number, year of birth, last four digits of your credit card number, information about aircraft that you may or may not own, pilot status, industry and title, account activity, including flights viewed and comments posted. So that's things that you searched for. Uh,
Mhm.
and then your social security number, no big deal. At this point, it's already out there. So,
I just can't figure it out here. So ACAT said if you gave FlightAware your address and social security number, you're silly. What the heck are you giving them your social security number for? And maybe I don't understand what all is like if you're an actual pilot or something, but like what? Why? Why?
yeah, maybe you need to prove who you are to get access to like redacted information, or like if it gives
Maybe.
you like a free thing. But I don't understand why you would be providing them with your social security number either. Seems like it's for the government. Like
Right.
why are private companies like requiring you to give you them your social security number? Like it's annoying. But yeah, I would just say like leaking your account activity is definitely sketchy. So if somebody
Yeah.
then wanted to like go through this information and find people by the flights they were tracking, like basically find everybody who was interested in a particular flight, those searches you made, you basically your search history on FlightAware might not actually be so private,
Right.
which is wild to me. And of course, people are providing their information to get a free ADSB receiver. That's the other thing here is like if you want free
Mm,
stuff, you can actually sign up and they will give you a receiver to collect data in your area. So I think a lot of people probably signed up for the free stuff. It's very
right.
popular in the hacker community to get your first free ADSB kit by signing up for like FlightAware or whatever and having them send you one, because then you can turn around and use that ADSB receiver for all kinds of other cool stuff.
Ah,
So
got it.
yeah, kind of a bummer. Kind of a bummer to see this one because I do like FlightAware a lot, and it's like seeing it would be as though Wiggle Wi-Fi like leaked your social security number. You're like, why did you even have that? All right. Next up, we have yet another Toyota third-party data breach. So when you have all these contractors and people that are working on all different parts of the project, it makes it really hard to know that everybody's on the same page with security. And Toyota has repeatedly had this happen with their subcontractors. So we had a data breach story months and months ago that was also
Yeah.
talking about some other company that was working with Toyota that leaked data. And this is another 240 gigabytes of stolen data leaked on a hacking forum. Um, yeah. Again, this is a third-party entity that was misrepresented as Toyota. So it's one of those things where it's
Right.
like this data was definitely Toyota's data.
Right.
However, it was stored by a third party. So I kind of feel like we're almost splitting hairs here when we're talking about like who was breached, because it's like at a certain point, if you take your data and you give it to a third party contractor and they got breached, like didn't you get breached too? I don't really know here. But either way, Toyota pushing back and saying it was a third party contractor here that had the security failure, not them. Um, and this seems to, yeah, be customer and employee data that's being exposed. Contact, finance, customers, schemes, employees, photos, wonder what that is,
Hmm.
DBs, network infrastructure, emails, a lot of perfect data.
Ooh.
So for anybody who's looking to attack the mothership, this third-party contractor leaking a bunch of sensitive information about Toyota is certainly probably worth it. It gives them the access they need to understand how to move within their network, as it contains network information, database information, and also personnel information that would be valuable to a social engineering attack. So for any big-time threat actors out there, this is juicy information. Perfect, perhaps, as the threat actor has said. So definitely something to keep an eye on, as this could be a early warning to a follow-on attack.
It's interesting though. We keep seeing more of this like um, third party organizations leaking this, and in more of the corporate world, it's amazing to see how often people approve like third party apps and other things to connect to their systems. Even like, hey, I've got like my Outlook or my Google. Oh yeah, I want this third party whatever AI app to summarize my emails for me or whatever it happens to be. You can grant it access, and then basically what happens is it's operating into your privileges, so it has access to anything that you have access to. So I think that this is not the same thing, but these third party connections are something that we really have to pay a lot more attention to, even
Yeah,
in the regular corporate world.
yeah, no, you're right. Like when you integrate with another service and you give it access to something, like it certainly means that it could potentially be retaining a lot more information than you think,
Yeah.
or storing information in a way that you're not comfortable with. All right, next up we have hackers locking Unicoin staff out of their Google accounts for 4 days. So it seems like in the world of security, crypto security, like cryptocurrency security, seems to be the absolute wildest. Like there's security misconfigurations and all this other stuff going on. So in this case, we have Unicoin projects staff being locked out of their G Suite account, sorry, their Google Workspace account,
Hmm.
and having all the passwords for their employees changed. They apparently restored access 4 days later, but there was some evidence of concerning activity, like including discrepancies found in personal data of employees or contractors, evidence of compromised communications, specifically hacked messages, the email accounts. Identity forgery was detected for one of the contractors, leading to the termination, presumably related to this intrusion and then attack. But again, I'm just amazed that this level of back and forth was able to happen in the first place. Like generally, if like somebody takes over your like Google business account, like you can just like contact them and they'll fix it. But in this case, it seems like it was an attack that took some time to remediate, and certainly must have been frustrating to be completely locked out of all of your accounts and then come back to find them modified and potentially compromised.
Absolutely. I like this idea about fake phone numbers. James said we should all use the fake phone number so it looks like we're world travelers.
Just everybody decide on one fake phone number. Yeah, not a bad idea. Probably get a lot of. You have to decide on who can cash in on all the rewards.
That's true. Yeah.
So at the Oregon Zoo, we have details of an attack where it looks like all of the visitors' credit card information details were stolen. This seems to be complete credit card information. That's going to be your full name, payment card number in its full form,
Mm.
CVV, verification data, and expiration date. Obviously, that is just about all you need to be able to charge something on a credit card, with the exception of perhaps the like zip code of where that credit card is. Like I can't think of anything else you need except maybe the PIN.
Right.
So that is going to be a very juicy breach for hackers, as it involves a lot of active credit cards. the third-party credit card processing vendor who processed the tickets apparently was the one leaking this. So again, a third-party breach for somebody who is processing information for a larger entity. In this case, the Oregon Zoo stating that it is responsible here, or at least it is taking responsibility. So not this time splitting hairs about whether it was them that was breached or this
Right.
third-party contractor.
This just made me sad though. Like, I don't know. I don't know why this story made me so sad. Like, come on, it's a zoo, people. Like, just let, I don't know, people look at the animals and instead of making them go through this trouble. I don't know. This one just bothered me on like a personal level for some reason.
Yeah, 117,815 people included in this data breach. That's a lot of credit
Yeah, it
cards.
is.
But good for them for checking out the zoo. And hopefully they will receive, yes, Killian, our free
Yes.
credit monitoring. If you weren't already covered by having your data breached in the, like 2 billion records that were breached recently, including social security numbers, then here you go. Free credit monitoring.
Yep.
Amazing. All right, next up, we have Microchip Technology talking about a cyber attack that is disrupting their operations. This is across multiple manufacturing facility, and I had not heard of this company initially, but perhaps because their name is so generic that I just think that they are like somebody's talking about an industry segment when they're talking about this specific company.
Right.
But they are apparently operating at reduced capacity. And this is related to a potentially suspicious activity involving its IT systems. That is not good because usually when we hear that, that means a ransomware attack with
Right.
potentially limited scope, but we'll see exactly what the impact is here. They said that they are investigating the full scope, nature, and impact of the event. It's not known. But these filings are the only real way that we know when publicly traded companies get breached. And this filing, again, is still somewhat vague as they're in the beginning stages of investigating the breach. But the SEC filing does suggest it was ransomware. As no ransomware operation has claimed responsibility for the attack, it's likely that there are ongoing negotiations. We have another episode of the Hacker Zine Frack. So if you're interested in this, I had not heard of this initially. Actually, maybe it's just been a really long since the last episode was published. I don't know. But Underground Online Magazine, Killian, are you familiar with this?
No, I had never heard of this one actually. Um, I don't know how it compares to like 2600 or whatever. Like I remember that like coming up as being something around at the time that was available, but I've never heard of Frack. So this was interesting because it was from what 85 it started, something like that.
Yeah. Like it's been going around for a long time, and it's cool to see another episode out. I was taking a look at it last night, and there's definitely a lot of cool topics here. Some of them are like hyper
Mm-hmm.
technical, evasion by de-optimization, and some of them are more kind of philosophical, like talking about the current state of technology, like how we're like rushing out a lot of like unproven tech. If you want a good
Yeah.
read, I found it to be pretty interesting, and the variety of topics here was great. I thought it was very cool. You can go back and see all the other issues as well, going all the way back to the beginning. So yeah, wait, does it? It doesn't have a date on it. Oh wait, it does have a date on it. 1985. Yeah, you were correct. It released on November 17th, 1985. Super cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so we have QNAP, who has been on our show, let's
Mm-hmm.
just say a couple of times for ransomware. They provide network attached storage. So that's going to be like stuff that's stored locally. And I see these all the time at like small and medium sized offices for like convenience purposes, just on-prem storage for stuff that's happening. That could be logs that get copied somewhere else, like all sorts of stuff. But it looks like they have added ransomware protection to their latest version of their QTS operating system, which is good because they get hit with ransomware all of the time. Mostly because this is a very, very juicy target. And for small and medium sized businesses, they often rely on these network attached storage to do moving of
Mm-hmm.
data between like various computers in the office. And like it's just a very common setup that I see in like on-prem kind of like businesses. So yeah, happy to see this because I think it's the first step towards reducing the sexiness of these
Right.
network attached storage devices as an attack surface. I'm generally pleased to see this.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, Leo had a good comment. Um, Smashing the stack for fun and profit is from Frack. I didn't realize that. Okay, because I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar um, with that paper or piece of material, literature, whatever you want to call it. I just didn't realize it was from Frack. So maybe, yeah, Leo, maybe you're right. Maybe all of this stuff that we've come across in the years of coming up, we just didn't put two and two together, or just didn't sound familiar.
Yeah, no, I got the feeling that this was something I'd run across a couple times, but again, I also got the feeling that it maybe hadn't been published in a while. All right, next up, we have that dreadful Windows recall finally coming out. So we talked about how we didn't like this. It's basically taking screenshots of what you're doing all the time,
Hmm.
and then running it through a neural processing unit and an AI model in order to add information to an SQLite database and allow you to search for that information. So if you're just like, like when was I working on that poster that had like my cat dressed as Batman? You could type in cat dressed as Batman and it would search through and recognize that image potentially and then like allow you to go back to that and potentially find information that you lost or that was gone. The idea here is like people are tired of losing data and they want to be able to go
Right.
back and find everything they've ever done. In reality, I don't know that that's true, but we will certainly find out as this is being rolled out to Windows insiders. You do need to, I believe, opt into this now. But they are sticking to their guns that this is like a useful feature that people want. I think as a convenience feature, having like a memory for the computer to go back, like having a whole computer browser history is the idea here. But could that
Right.
be monetized? Could that information be scraped to like just squeeze user data out of every single interaction with the computer? Yes. I believe it will be milked like a cow. So that is
Yep.
why I am not like hugely supportive of this continuous monitoring and AI tagging of all things you do with the computer the entire time you're using it sounds like a nightmare to me. So
Yeah.
I'm not super interested in this one, and I guess we'll see. It seems like the opposite of the Android thing where they're trying to like hide like passwords and redact stuff when you do recordings. This just wants to record everything and also
Yeah.
classify everything.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan. I mean, they invested too much to not come out with it, but yeah, this is going to be terrible. Yeah.
All right, so I think this is my favorite wild story of the week. This guy
Yes.
hacked the Hawaii State Registry and reported himself dead. So he also did this to apparently avoid paying child support. So
Yes. Hmm.
that is probably the wildest part to me. It's like not like he was running from anything other than like paying to support his children. He went so far as to get the username and password of a physician living in another state, created a case for his own death, completed the state of Hawaii death certificate, and signed the death certificate himself as the medical certifier for the case and certifying his own death, signing the digital certificate of the doctor. So he appeared as deceased in the United States government databases, nullifying his outstanding child support obligations, which was the main motive behind his illegal access. But then, once you're dead, how do you do anything? Um,
Right.
you gotta apparently use a false social security number to apply for a credit or debit account, and that is where he got tripped up here um, for identity theft, basically using a different social security number to attempt to set himself up in his new life. So if you are
Hmm.
going to declare yourself dead to avoid financial obligations, you have to understand that that also opts you out of the entire financial system. So like you then have to commit various crimes in order to just do like daily stuff. So I'm not sure if the math was done here on like how much crime would need to be committed to like live outside of the system as like a person declared deceased.
Right.
But I hope I can only imagine what the child support payments were going to be. So that who's would have been an interesting detail. Oh wait, sorry, $195,000 is the amount of child support here.
It's a lot of money. You know what? This story was pretty funny, but all it made me think about was in the movie Hackers, where they're having the competition to mess with the FBI guy or whatever it was, where they change him to dead in that in there. That's I don't know why, but that's just where my mind went.
Maybe he figured out he could not go to jail if he was considered dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? I have to say though, like for in the list of people who've like gone into government databases and tried to benefit themselves, like this is like probably the file where you literally just like declare yourself like no longer part of the US. You nullify your citizenship, all of your financial
Right.
obligations, but also your bank account and your driver's license. It's like losing your wallet on like a cosmic scale. So yeah, pretty crazy case here, and
Hmm.
obviously not totally sure if it was worth the 69 months in prison
No.
for getting out of $195,000.
No, I don't think so. I mean, what do I
All
know?
right. So another case of cybercrime justice. In this case, we have a cybercrime gang member who has been extradited to the United States and charged for money laundering, wire fraud, and extortion. So this is a 33-year-old hacker, Dennis, who was a member of the Karakurt. Do you have a pronunciation on this? I'm never confident.
I think that's pretty good. Karakurt.
All right, all right.
That sounds all
I
right.
always want a second opinion on that one. But this is an operation that compromised company names, company systems, stole data, and demanded ransoms from victims, often threatening to leak the information or sell it to other criminals. Obviously, they're just trying to make money off this data that they get access to somehow. And they lived in Latvia. Oh, sorry, they were a Latvian national that lived in Moscow, but were arrested in Georgia and then extradited to the United States. And they were apparently the cold case negotiator for this cybercrime group. So they were the ones who were actually speaking to the victims and attempting to extort money from them in exchange for not leaking the information. Although this group also apparently had a pretty nasty reputation for leaking the data anyway or selling it
Yeah.
anyway, even after the victims paid up. It looks like the penalties here are also a maximum of 20 years in prison plus a fine of up to $500,000 or twice the value of the property involved in the transaction conspiracy to commit money laundering.
Hmm.
So a lot of time on the table here for being a part of this cybercrime operation, even if it was just in the negotiation part. Although got a very like red theme going on with like all of the stories. All right, so we have Microsoft confirming that they basically stepped on the Linux dual boot like grub system in
Hmm.
many systems that received a update in August. So if you were dual booting like Ubuntu or any type of Linux on your Windows system with secure boot enabled, then this basically stepped on your grub bootloader, and in an attempt to mitigate a security bypass vulnerability, they actually just made it impossible to load your Linux instance. So they state that they are working with the Linux community to try to fix this, but it causes some issues apparently because dual boot detection doesn't detect some quote customized methods of dual booting and applies to the SBAT and applied the SBAT value where there should not have been applied, and that basically makes it impossible to load your old Linux volume until this is fixed. Many different Linux users confirmed they were affected. This is going to be running Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin OS, Puppy Linux, and other distros not booting anymore. This is the screen that you're seeing. So obviously, if you've chosen to allow Windows to exist on your precious Linux computer, this is going to piss you off. Like no longer
Hmm.
having access to your Linux volume just because you're trying to keep your Windows updated and you're using Secure Boot. Why? So if you're already updated, then there are some mitigations here, like deleting the SBAT policy, wiping the Windows installation, which I think is just revenge for what it did.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, all these options honestly seem pretty annoying. So Windows was not very courteous here in allowing other operating systems to boot on a device that it is sharing. And this is kind of stuff that really makes Linux users mad. So sorry to all Linux users who were affected by this one. It is definitely a bummer to have to either nuke Windows or reset your Linux distro just to boot it on your PC.
Absolutely. I saw a good comment here. Where to go? Something that we should just. Oh, 8 Bitoni said, "Who does this anymore? Why don't we just run it on a VM?" It's like, true.
Uh, Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I do it like so for me, like being able to do Wi-Fi hacking without getting my computer incredibly hot is important.
Mm,
So I
okay.
find that sometimes running a virtual machine when you're using like a wireless network adapter can be really tricky. It's just like it's difficult to connect to the correct adapter. Like setting everything up in the virtual instance is really annoying. So I tend to run like a bare metal Linux instance like when I can. But I will confirm that Temple OS is not affected. So if you want to dual boot Temple OS running Holy C, then you can absolutely still do that, and it should be protected against this like grub bootloader stomping that Windows did. And that's just about all the stories we have time for today. I know, Killian, it is late on the East Coast. I'm over on the Pacific time zone at the moment, so it's still got plenty of the day over here. But yeah, if you've got any questions about the stories we talked about this week, if you've got anything else you want to talk about, feel free to leave it as a comment on the YouTube channel. We'll go through and answer it on the Wednesday stream, where I'm going to be catching up with many comments we haven't answered yet. Some things to look forward to. I completely forgot about Hackaday SuperCon. So Hackaday SuperCon is coming up, and I don't know how I could have forgotten about this because like my friend shared this with me, and it's literally a picture of me on the website on 2024. Let me see if I can find it. I just want to confirm that I'm not hallucinating. Tickets on sale. That's me. That's me right there.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, so that's me and my friend Ben. So I always have such a good time at Hackaday SuperCon, and I always forget about it until like the month before. So Hackaday SuperCon is in November. I am super excited about it. I'm gonna figure out how to do something there, even though most of the calls for workshops and stuff are closed. But that's probably the next thing to look forward to is Hackaday SuperCon is going to be super fun. So I was talking about how like, oh no, there's no more cons coming up. Well, I was looking forward to maybe going to Wild West Hacking Fest, but it looks like Deadwood is closed. The innkeeper told us
Oh,
that they are all full and that they're not doing anything else. So we might still go to St. Con in Salt Lake City. That's coming up in October, and then in November we have Hackaday SuperCon, which I am so excited for, and planning on making some new stuff. Oh, did I? No, I had a badge to share with everyone, so I'll also be sharing that next week. But let's just say this was the development board that my team created for a DEF CON badge, which is very cute. It says this one is just a big old rectangle, but the cat shaped version is sitting in the other room. I'm going to have more details on this, and we're going to be doing Meshtastic, hopefully Meshtastic and CircuitPython workshops, teaching about LoRa and some other cool stuff on these badges, although cat
nice.
shaped and much smaller. So lots of cool stuff to look forward to. I'm so glad though that Black Hat and DEF CON are over and behind us, and that they went well. They were fantastic. It was great to see everyone. Sad to not see you, Killian, but my God, was it exhausting. So some of these more laid back conferences coming up is going to be cool. So hopefully we'll see some of you at those conferences. Uh, I really like that. People are squinting and they're like, oh, wait, it is Killian. Um, but yeah, so lots of cool stuff to look forward to. Hopefully, we will bump into you at some of these conferences. Maybe Killian, maybe I can lure you out here for one of these conferences, or you can get away and experience one of these smaller cons one of these times. I think you would enjoy it, and people will
Yeah,
recognize you at this point. We got these security forward stickers to give out.
nice. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Not obviously not in front of everybody here, but gonna pop up my calendar and
Here's a good question: does Meshastic work on the older LoRa Nugget LoRa board? It should, but it would need to be recompiled, which honestly is the hardest thing. So, just answering that question really quick, we did a lot of classes talking about LoRa and talking about. Oh, I never even did my Meshastic demo for you. Ugh. Um, man, sorry. Let me see if I can do that. So, thank you for the question. We'll wrap this up quickly. But let me, if you don't mind showing off my screen again. So I set up a Meshtastic sensor network node in a couple of minutes the other day, and I thought it was so cool. I wanted to show this off. So we talked about some of the evil things you could potentially do with Meshtastic and exfiltrating data, like doing all this cool stuff. And I have here my Meshtastic node. I'm going to connect this is I think like a rack wireless one, but I have some nuggets in the other room contributing data. So I'm going to connect to my radio. That's me, Gaylord. If you see me on SoCal Mesh Network, that's my call sign. And then I can go over to nodes here, and I can see all of these nodes in the area that are contributing information. So I see at the moment 73 different nodes that are out here. So I named my sensor node, which is the nugget that I've been teaching these LoRa classes and Meshtastic classes with. I named it Brat. It is 15 feet away from me. I forgot that it is reporting my exact location, so I will not show that. But I can click on environmental metrics log and look at this. This is so cool. This is actually live environmental metrics from the other room coming over Meshtastic. And this is probably just connecting point to point because they're so close to each other, but this could go over like the whole SoCal mesh network. So the way that this would work is like this. Can I make this bigger? I guess not. I could come up with my own like mesh password. So I can create my own mesh network. So it's traveling over the public network, but it's encrypted so only I can see it. I can put a bunch of these sensors out there and around that are reporting back information. In this case, they're temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure sensors, but you can modify this to do anything. And then you can have a receiver anywhere that's receiving the information, processing it, acting on it, or logging it. So in the case yesterday, I also connected a presence detector. So this is a millimeter wave radar human presence detector that is tuned to detect people. So when somebody walks by it, it detects it, and then over Meshtastic, it sends an alert. Now, I forgot to set my own channel, so I was on the public lobby spamming all of Southern California. And when I set up my detector, I thought it would be really funny. So it's just like, oh, I'll name this detector toilet cam motion detector. I was like, I'm going to be goofy. And I didn't realize that I would. So then I walked by it a couple times, and it generated like 25 alerts. I'm like, oh, that's so funny. Right. And then finally somebody responded, was like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And I realized I'd sent out 25 toilet cam motion detected like silly messages all to the entire SoCal mesh network, which was distributed all the way down to Orange County and all the way up to Santa Ana. So sorry yesterday if you're part of SoCal MeshNet and you received those notifications yesterday. I didn't realize I was sending an alarm bell to the entire SoCal area. But just an example of how you could do this sort of thing. Although again, the first step is to set your own channel or your own encryption key, so not everybody is reading your data. So anyway, like this is something that you could do if you wanted to set up your own sensors. This sensor log actually it usually graphs it as well, which I think is so cool. You can graph by temperature, humidity, but I went ahead and wrote my own script to do this, which in Python using just like pandas or something like that. And the way it came out was pretty cool. Let me see if I can pop it on the screen. So this is the result of the log. You can just download the CSV file and it'll show you all this. I could see the temperature, relative humidity, and barometric pressure, all this information reported over Meshtastic, and as simple as flashing Meshtastic, changing the role of the device to a sensor, enabling telemetry, and plugging in a sensor. And just like that, I was transmitting all this data across the mesh. And again, this could be all sorts of useful and juicy information that a hacker might be interested in, you know? So if I wanted to transmit other data over the network, like if I wanted to do network scans using the onboard radio, if I wanted to do Bluetooth scans for like whether or not someone's car tire pressure sensor is nearby and send that over the mesh, I could do that too. So I just wanted to shout this out as like such a satisfying project. If anybody's interested in sensor telemetry, placing sensors across a city and having them report back to you like in a central location, I was amazed by how easy this was. So that was the result of my experimentation, was making a citywide motion alert by accident, and then also learning how to log all this information in real time. And I have to say, the interface here is really slick. So this is coming in real time. We've had 2 updates come in. The last one was 8 seconds ago. So for real-time sensor logging and information, I have to say this is a pretty cool project, and I think a lot of people would enjoy Meshtastic for some of this like scientific style stuff. All right, everyone. So I'm gonna also definitely do I think it's gonna be like a null byte video, honestly, talking about like Meshtastic, like advanced Meshtastic stuff, like creating your own sensor net, creating like a network of motion detectors, like, and maybe even using an external module to do something in response to that. So if you've ever wanted to, I don't know, wipe your entire computer, like when you press hold up a button and press it from across the city, then this is something that could actually probably do that, which is pretty crazy and pretty cool. All right. I should change my Wi-Fi SSID to toilet cam. So you may joke about it, but when we tell examples in my Wi-Fi hacker hunting class about why you might want to track something down, like a suspiciously named SSID is a really good example where if you're in like an Airbnb and you see like a like a camera related like SSID, or if you see like something connected to your home network and you want to know what it is, or if it's nearby, like
Right.
it's a way you could definitely track that down and identify the source of it. So yeah, no, it's you might provoke a bit of a cyber investigation there if you do name your SSID that. But yeah. All right, everyone. That is all the time we have today. Kilian, thank you for joining me. I know
Thank you.
it's getting pretty late over on the East Coast there. We will see all of you on the Wednesday stream. And of course, a big shout out and thank you to Varonis, not only for sending me to these great conferences I get to report back to and meet so many of you at, but also for supporting me doing the stream twice a week, every week. If you want to support the stream, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. Helps everyone there know that you appreciate the stream, you want us to keep going, and it doesn't cost you anything to do so. We will see you next week when we hopefully will be used to this new Restream IO template.
Hmm.
But until then, I'll see you all next time and have a good weekend, everyone. Goodbye.